I used to suffer a lot with conditions such as skin issues, skin rashes, reoccurring yeast infections, things of that nature. And I kept trying to figure out why I kept getting these types of ailments. And it never dawned on me that it could be my diet. At the time, I've always been one to be pretty active in as far as making sure I work out, even if I didn't consistently work out. But throughout my adult life, I've pretty much been in and out of some type of gym facility as far as working out and trying to keep my health in order. I pretty much consumed meat at every meal. The meats that I was attached to eating was chicken, the seafoods like the fish, eating things like shrimp. I didn't do a lot of beef. I kind of started to wing myself away from beef and pork, but I was consuming turkey. So those were my big three: seafood, chicken, and turkey. And for the longest time, I was consuming those and putting those, incorporating that into my meals. And there were times where I got kind of frustrated and kind of bored with food options and wondering what I'm gonna eat today. Or I've tried many times to switch up my recipes and try to incorporate different things that I hadn't tried when it comes to making my meals. I always came back to feeling kind of blah about the whole thing. And so I would say the main things when it came to it being a personal health journey for me was concerns of my gut health. I feel like I had leaky gut. I was never tested for it, but I did continue to have issues with my gut as far as, like I said, reoccurring yeast infections and issues with constipation. And a lot of times, constipation is pretty much due to the foods that you eat, because we know that it takes meat a long time to process through the body. So for days, it could just be sitting in the colon line and not broken down because it takes it takes days and days for it just to work its way through your system. And those are some of the things that I had issues with when I was consuming meat. I also suffered from a lack of energy off and on. Even though I was at the time working out and in the gym regularly, my energy levels were still plummeting. I started incorporating supplements such as vitamin B12 and some other over the counter supplements. They did little to no help. I didn't notice any difference with taking the supplements. So I eventually stopped taking. When it comes to recurring yeast infection, I that was probably one of the toughest times with me trying to combat it and figure out how to fight it naturally. I was diving into doing a lot of research on trying to figure out what I could use, what I could order offline to kind of clear up my gut. And it just led me down a really deep rabbit hole with trying to figure out and research different health remedies that I could incorporate into my daily lifestyle to help correct the issue. And honestly, I didn't see a difference in anything that I took while I was eating meat. It was only after when I started to clear out my gut and my colon is when I started noticing a difference. And I'll discuss that a little bit later. So back in about 2016, I had came down with a really bad skin rash, and it ended up being scabies. For those of you who don't know what it is, you can go do your research on what it is. At the time, I had no idea what scabies was. I don't know how I contracted it. I just woke up one day. I noticed that I was itching in an area on my leg, and I thought it was just mosquito bites. It was not mosquito bites. It was the most excruciating, itchy sensation I have ever experienced in my life. I don't wish the experience on anyone. And at the time, I was working long shifts, so I couldn't just get up and go to work because I was pretty much working overnight. So that day that I noticed the itchiness was increasing and the size of the bumps, it was like a patch of bumps in one area on my inner thigh. I remember it like it was yesterday. And that the size was like gradually increasing. I was like, that was nothing I have ever experienced or noticed in my life. So I immediately got up, put my clothes on, and I went over to an urgent care in the town that I was living in at the time. After clearing up the whole issue with having scabies, and that experience was just horrific, that pretty much was part of the basis for me going on and starting my health journey, not only physically, but spiritually as well. So that laid the groundwork for me catapulting into coming off of consuming meats. Not to mention, like I said earlier, I was still having issues with candida and leaky gut, is what I believe that I had. Those issues did not clear up until I came off of meat and I started learning to detox my body from the inside out. And today I no longer have any issues with candida overgrowth, no issues with leaky gut, and I'm just as healthy as the next person. I was inspired by my sister. My sister had already transitioned off of meat, and she one day she suggested me to give it a try, because at the time I was going through a whole little natural health kick with coming off chemical products. Like, I stopped getting perms, I stopped processing my hair with chemicals. I mean, I still do use various hair products today, but I don't use chemicals to straighten, no longer straighten my hair. My natural hair journey began a little bit before that, and so eventually this is where I am today. 2018 was the year where I came completely off of meat, and I was still suffering with issues with candida, and it was just pretty much drove me crazy dealing with candida. Itchy skin, my skin was always itchy, and that was just a very frustrating to deal with, the skin irritations. But like I said, the yeast infections and the itchiness, and it was just almost drove me insane. So I did start looking into using herbs to clear out my gut lining. And I remember one of the first things that I used, it was a combination of things that I used. And it took me some time before I started seeing results. But when I saw results, I was so relieved, almost felt immediate relief. I started using herbs like black walnut hull, some other ones. I'll probably put a list of them on the screen. And I would say they were the most effective. It was a combination, not just one product in particular that did the trick. It was a combination of things, and it was a process. I developed a regimen. I laid out a regimen for myself, and I followed that regimen for anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks off and on. And that is pretty much what helped to get my body back to feeling normal. And the results were amazing, because that was the first time in a very long time where I started to feel like myself again. I started to feel relief from not having to deal with issues and symptoms of having minor ailments at the time. And I was just so glad. I felt so clean on the inside from doing that, that it just made me want to go ahead and adopt the mindset of, let me try to see if I can come off of meats and give it a shot to see what it's like. Now, mind you, I was very addicted to meat. Chicken was mainly the main source of meat that I was consuming at the time. I would, eat some fish here and there, mainly tilapia and shrimp. And I didn't do a lot of crabs, even though I do like crabs. Turkey, ground turkey. I used to make a lot of turkey burgers and things that whatever meals you would use beef for, I would substitute it with the ground turkey, like the spaghetti and the chili and all of that different stuff. Like I said, it was really hard. It took me about maybe a month to get the mindset to I kind of just did a cold turkey. I probably wouldn't recommend nobody to do anything cold turkey, because that takes a great mental strength to be able to do that. I do not know what type of brain power or willpower I had at the time, but whatever it was, it helped me to get through those tough times in transitioning off of consuming meat. I love Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A was like my number one go-to restaurant. I ate it almost daily. I would go ahead and say daily. And it got so bad. I didn't want anything but the 8 count nuggets. All I wanted was the nuggets, the nuggets. I didn't want any bread. I just give me the nuggets. I don't know what at the time they were putting in their food, but it was so addicting. I just couldn't bring myself to come off of it. So, like I said, I wanted to give it a shot. And so I just pretty much did it cold turkey one day. Like I said, my sister was kind of an inspiration for me to give it a try. And I said to myself, okay, well, I'll give it a try and see if I like it. And if I don't like it, I'll just go back to eating meats. And I would say the first 2 weeks were the hardest. It was the hardest because I had to get in the mindset of, okay, I'm not going to be eating meats anymore. And as the weeks went on, I found it a little bit easier each day. I began to not miss it. Because, like I said, when I was eating meat, I was pretty much bored. I was tired of trying to switch up the recipes. I was tired of eating the same things. Not to say that when you do come off of meat and you adopt a more plant-based diet that you're not going to be bored with your recipe options. You absolutely can. I've had issues and I still do have issues with switching up the recipes and incorporating new foods, but that's just my own issue. Long story short, so from 2018 to now 2025, it's been 7 years since I've came off of consuming meats. And I have to say that I truly believe that overall my health has greatly dramatically increased over the years. I have less and less issues, no serious health issues that I could think of that I've, encountered thus far. Other than I do have GERD, and I will address that in a later video and what I'm doing to heal myself from that as well, because that is another condition that I would like to share with people. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I wanted to share how I got started on my journey with coming off of meats. Like, if I ever find myself in a position where it is beneficial for me to go back to consuming meats, then I probably would do that at least temporarily, and then I probably would switch back off of it. When I first came off of meat, my energy levels took a plummet really, really bad. I was so drained. And I don't know if it was because of the withdrawal symptoms or what. My energy tanked really, really bad. I had to learn how to incorporate more iron rich producing foods to help build up my iron levels in my blood. That's probably the only issue that I have today that I'm still working on fixing is my iron levels. Because when you come off of meats, you still do have to find your source of protein, your source of iron. You still have to make sure you're getting all the important nutrients and minerals in your diet. If you don't, your body will suffer and it will let you know. You will notice a very big difference. Just over the past year, I had to get an iron infusion because my iron levels were too low, and I let my iron levels fall out of range, not paying attention to incorporating more iron rich foods. And that's a very important thing that you have to keep in mind. So I'm still learning how to incorporate new recipes and new foods that I haven't even tried in my diet. So overall, I would say that's the only issue that I've had so far with being plant-based is the iron levels. My iron levels did drop. Thanks for taking the time to listen to me explain my story. I appreciate you for being here. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in the next video.